Good question.
Okay, next question.
Oh, oh,
Well, Travis?
um, did what is it like flying in a plane in the war?
Life flying in an airplane on a war was very, very exciting. And,
Exciting.
yeah, it was very
Oh,
exciting.
that sounds fun.
I have to confess I enjoyed it a lot. And sometimes you get pretty frightened. The first place we went was to, we went to Hawaii first. Don't want to run my answer over too long. And then we went to Midway after, if the big battle of Midway was over, but it was still figured to be endangered, potentially endangered. So we were there patrolling around the place constantly. And there, two interesting things happened. And if you see the picture Midway, you'll see that one fellow survived from the carrier. I forgot the name of the carrier, Enterprise, I guess, sank, whatever the carrier was, and his name was George Gay. And George Gay came back. He floated around under a life raft and floated so close to some of the Japanese ships that he would sometimes, he had a piece of debris, and he would try to stay under that when the tides would take him close to the ships. I talked to him a long time when he came back, and he told us how he really thought they were probably going to see him and kill him, but they didn't. But he got back alive, and within the last 2 weeks, I read in the paper that Gay died at the age of 79 or 80 years of age.
Oh, recently.
But anyway, after Midway, and a funny thing about Midway is it's a place, the land of the Goonie birds. And if you've heard about Goonie birds, they're birds that fly out to sea for months at a time, and they don't see land, and they just fish and fly and whatever. And when they come back, they don't have any perspective as to where land is. And often as not, when they come flying into Midway to return, they'll fold their wings, and they may be 20 feet in the air. You see, they can't tell where the ground is. And they'll hit the ground and flop, 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 flop on the ground because they've lost perspective. Another time they'll come flying into the ground and keep flying, and they'll hit the ground, and then they'll go tumbling down the runway. You see, they just don't know where the ground is. And I've seen them actually fly into a line, an electric line, and they have a long neck, and then they go flap, flap, flap around the electricity line. So that was very funny. And that was the first place I became interested in shelling. There was a fellow from Oberlin College whose name was Jim Ware. I don't know whatever happened to him. But he started bringing these beautiful little shells, which cat eyes, which I didn't even know what they were, and he started being interested in that. And I went out around a wreck, some planes that were shot up in a battle, and I was looking for some of these little things because it was a good place. And I looked down, and here was this big fish, and he was nibbling at the hairs on my leg. And at that point, I was the second guy to ever walk on the water. No, I was really so scared I almost walked on water. I came out so fast. That was just a joke.
Wait. Oh,
Danny wants to follow up, I think.
yeah, question?
Yeah.
Okay, when was the closest time that you ever died? Like, how close were you to dying?
Well, there were several times it was awful close. I think, the very first time that we were actually under fire, we flew by ourselves. We flew alone. And we were out we had to keep the Japanese fleet under surveillance 24 hours a day. It was before the big battle for the Philippines, and it would be about 50 years and about 3 months from ago, really, that this was all happening. And our squadron was VPB 101, and we both patrolled and kept them under surveillance. And we also did bombing things. We had extra bomb bays, bomb racks and so forth. So we're supposed to bomb the ships and do all this stuff. Yeah, okay, you can. Just let me finish this real quick. So the first time we were jumped by about 6 or 8 planes. And we always felt that it was a pretty even match if there was no more than 6 to 1, because we had power turrets, big old turrets that had 50 millimeter guns. They had 2 of them, that go like this, and you can move them up and down. We had one in the bow of the plane, one in the aft, one in the stern, one underneath, and one on top. So we had 4 power turrets, which gave you 8 50 millimeter guns, and then you had guys in the back just holding one and shooting. Well, here we were jumped, and I looked out the cockpit, and here these Japanese were coming in. And I looked at it, and I said, gee, this is just like in the movies. And all of a sudden I realized it was for real, because you could see the tracer bullets coming right at us. And we took some violent maneuvers and so forth. And the bad part of it, this whole thing was, the first time this happened, not one of our gunners fired a shot. All 6 of those planes made a run at us, and not one fired a shot.
Why?
And I was screaming into the intercom, you know, guys, this is serious. They're trying to kill our butts, you know. So start shooting. And anyway, I didn't like that
Why
very
did
much.
they shoot?
Well, I guess they were like I was. Gee, this is, look at it. Look at those guys. Those are Japanese, you know. They didn't really, they had
Yes.
never really tasted
Shock.
battle. And we had gunnery practice time and time again, and they were really pretty good at it, but they sat there the whole time. After that, we got more active and we did some things. But so that was one time that we could, just through our own innocence, we could have been killed. I think the one that came the closest may well have been before the landing in Mindoro, which was the one that took place December 12th, I think, of 1944. We had to go on a mission to fly all the way from over to what was then French Indochina, which is now Vietnam. And we had to fly up the coast. This was about a 14-hour mission. In those days, it was a pretty long one. And it was an intelligence gathering kind of thing. And we were supposed to go up the coast and come down and find out how many fleet units were there. And then we're supposed to go over Hong Kong Harbor, where we knew part of the Japanese fleet was anchored, or supposedly. And we're supposed to take pictures, B, stay over that place until you took an accurate count, and we had to encode it. We had a coding process which we put through, and then you had to send the message twice. There wouldn't be any authentication because Admiral Hawley was supposed to hit the thing the next day. And so and also they told us that we weren't under no conditions could we come back until we finished it. And you would fly out, there would be 2 planes that would go out, one would fly to the south and come up, the one would go to the north and come down. The other one actually did go back, and we were the only ones left, and we got a message that said, you must not come back. So, and I don't think they expected us back at all, because we'd already been told when we were shot down, told us where to go to hopefully escape if the Japanese took us to the mainland or other places. And so we were flying along, and the meteorologist that day said we'd have cloud cover all the way to the coast of China. And so when all of a sudden we broke out. We went down to about 1,000 feet, and we broke out of the overcast, and down below it looked like 10,000 ships. And for a minute, just the first minute, it scares you to death because we thought it was a Japanese fleet when you just first see it. It was actually a Chinese fishing fleet. And, you know, I almost wet my pants to tell you the truth. It's a frightening experience. And, but we know also that in those fleets that there was always somebody that was radioing back things that were there. And we flew right down over Japanese airfields, and they were shooting at us with small arms. And what we didn't know is that one of them had shot a hole in the cylinder, one of the engine cylinders, and it wouldn't last much longer. But and not a single plane came up. And then we flew down over the harbor, and there were indeed some units there. We encoded the messages, we sent it. And about that time, we lost that engine, so we had to fly back 7 or 8 hours with 3 engines. And we got up to about 10,000 feet, and we found out we lost another engine. We had another engine heating up, and we had to feather that prop, so we still had 5 or 6 hours. And then we had to come right back down by Manila, which is a Japanese stronghold, and that was deadly usually. If you had any engine out, if they saw anything that looked like a weakness, they would attack. And so we started losing altitude, and we kept getting lower and lower, and so we radioed back to our base that if it kept going, we couldn't get back at all. And so they said they would send out the Dumbo. Now the Dumbo was a plane that would pick you up on the water. That was one that could land on the water. And so we were hoping that they would meet us before we went into the water. And so to try to stay up in the air, we started chopping all the armor plating out of the plane. We chopped it all out, put that behind the pilots naturally, which seemed to be a good place to leave it. And we threw out all of our ammunition, but 50 rounds per gun. And we kept the tracer bullets. Now a tracer bullet is one that you can see firing. And we kept the tracers so the Japanese, when they attacked us, would know that we were still armed. And so, but they had instructions, the gunners, that they only just fire a spurt, just to let them know that we were armed. And so we kept going down. We got down to about 1,000 feet, and then we threw out, we had one of the radar was just new. We threw out all the radar. And then we sent a message telling them that we're going to throw out all of the, we would chop out all of the radio and radar equipment except the transmitter, because when we went in the water, we were going to tie the key down and it would emit a buzz or a hum or whatever, and then the other boat would come, the plane would come and pick us up until that thing went into the water and sank. And so all the crews were issued their life jackets, and we gave them morphine syrettes and so forth. And we had hard chocolate bars that you could, it wouldn't melt in the water or anything, that you'd keep you, you know, you could eat those and stay alive for a few days. so forth. So everybody was issued all of that, and we had stripped the plane down. We tried to chop out the belly turret. As I recall, it wouldn't fall. I mean, we sawed, they had a hacksaw and sawed all the bolts off and all that, and it wouldn't fall in the water, so we weren't able to get rid of that. But we got everything, we stripped that plane clean. And we came back